Hey everyone. Chris's studio computer is broken today. I'll make sure to turn my mic off when he's talking so y'all can hear him.
Yes, sir. I've got you. You got me?
In the game. Welcome in. It is the Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney and soundscape stylist on loan.
The Mike Taylor Show and the Sports Grind in San Antonio. The one and only Sam Freeze. Shannon Salty Sweeney, how are you on this Taco Tuesday?
I'm hanging in there. It's always a good day when it's Taco Tuesday. I mean, why not have an extra excuse to get tacos?
Amen. Amen. All right, and will you get tacos today? Is that on the agenda?
Yes. Whether or not they're breakfast or lunch tacos, yes. We'll see. Depends on what time I get out of there. I'm not seeing you this morning, so I'm just curious. What shirt are we sporting today? Because you have a lot of fun shirts that I enjoy seeing every morning.
Thank you for that. I am wearing a Beatles shirt,
okay.
John, Paul, George, and Ringo, because I am a Beatles freak from the '60s. What are you wearing? See, it's so weird. Okay, pulling back the curtain a little bit. I got into the studio and my mouse won't work for the computer. So when the mouse doesn't work the way this studio is set up, nothing works. I'm not getting on the internet. I'm lucky I'm even on the air here because there's two computer screens, one mouse, and kind of a wireless mouse that appears dead. I tried changing batteries. I tried whatever I could figure out for a few minutes. So it also controls the camera that I use for the live video feed. So that's why we can't see each other. Therefore, Shannon Sweeney, what are you wearing? You got a cool – you have a Tom Herman T-shirt today.
You know what? I never even got a Tom Herman t-shirt. But I think I am willing to maybe get one of those all gas, no brakes shirts for Sark. I'm wearing an ACL Live Austin City Limits Music Festival shirt today because
Cool.
I just miss music and live events.
Do you remember, and Sam probably has also been an ACL veteran, do you remember a great musical act that you saw at Austin City Limits that just blew you away?
I mean, I saw the Eagles at my first festival.
Woo! Nice.
That was, and fully loaded Eagles at that.
Yeah. Glenn Fry was still alive.
Correct.
Very, very cool. So you like the Eagles? I mean, that's before that's like my generation.
Oh yeah. They opened with "There Are Stars," and I'm not gonna sing it, but I mean that was incredible, just a cappella to open a show like that in front of thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
Nice,
incredible,
very cool. Let's speaking of music, and I'm sure he's been an ACL veteran. We're about to find out. He is a music aficionado. And by the way, someone tweeted out yesterday on my phone, since I don't have internet, maybe I'll retweet it to make sure people can see it. I imagine he retweeted it at Biggest Puma on Twitter. An actual basketball, I'm guessing college basketball action shot of you, Sam Ruiz.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate picture from high school, actually.
It was like college, man. I mean, you were big in high school.
Yeah. Having a nuclear power plant in your hometown helps those jerseys look college level as well. That was one of the many times that I lost the opening tip in my high school career. That really showcased my hops there in that picture.
Well, it's funny. Mike Taylor, specifically when he said something along the lines, you look like a generic Indiana Pacers center.
Oh, it has Rick Smith's just written all over it.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's screaming. And honestly, if I look back on my style of play, I was a bit of the prodding center that would jack up a trail three-pointer. So the analogy kind of fits.
Hey, that's good enough to be an all-star reserve these days. As long as Kevin Durant's not playing, you're in.
Beautiful. And Kevin Durant did not play last night in San Antonio, and Brooklyn still wins. James Harden in a triple-double, 30 points, 14 rebounds, 15 assists. Kyrie goes for 27. Spurs tie the score at the end of regulation, 108, but could not seal the deal in overtime. Brooklyn beats the Spurs in overtime last night, 124 to 113. But back to the Biggest Puma, Sam Freeze, who in addition to mad basketball skills, has mad music skills. ACL, do you have an ACL memory? Something you said ACL that blew your socks off?
The one that immediately comes to mind is we saw, it's probably been at least 4 years ago now, the last two closing band on the final night. It was Mumford & Son down at the big stage down at the south end of the park.
Yeah.
And then at the top for all of the older millennials and younger Gen X, it was LCD Sound System, which is, if you don't know, it's like a New York-based electronic punk band from the late '90s, early 2000s. And a band that I'm never gonna catch them on tour. Like the only chance I would ever get to see them is if I'm in New York City when they're doing a surprise show or at a massive festival, and it was literally as the two bands were getting ready to go on stage, you could literally just see the generation splitting in the crowd, and all the crowd heading south from Mumford, and all of us old timers kind of heading up for a bit of a disco party at the top of the hill. So that one stands out among all of them. The best set, just period, I probably ever saw at ACL was that same year. And just because I love them, Radiohead. I mean, I don't know when I would ever get a chance to see Radiohead. So, catch them at the festival was pretty special.
Very, very cool. And Shannon, I brought up Tom Herman a few moments ago, and you never did get a Tom Herman t-shirt. Tom Herman's got a new gig.
He certainly does. Heading to Chicago to be an offensive analyst and special projects. I don't know what that means. I don't know what kind of special projects. I mean, they've got a lot of work to do there in Chicago, but I don't know. And you know, we talk about all the time, all these people that go to Camp Saban for rehabilitations, typically fired head coaches end up being an analyst of some sort for him before they get their next big gig. It's almost to me like Tom Herman's ego was like, yeah, but if I go to the NFL and do this, then I'm still better than everyone.
Well, and didn't Saban replace Sark with Bill O'Brien?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, so Herman might have bummed out. I mean, that would have seemed like the move if he could have gotten it for Tom Herman to go. And that would have been weird, though. Sark goes to the Longhorns, and then Herman goes and fills his spot as offensive coordinator.
Yeah, Texas would be like, no takebacks.
Yeah. So maybe, I mean, it is an interesting move that you go, a very unusual position, kind of a vague, not really defined offensive analyst position with the Chicago Bears. I would have thought, and I get, maybe he wouldn't have gotten along with anybody on a panel. With Urban Meyer moving to the Jacksonville Jaguars, that college football panel that has Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and who's the Notre Dame quarterback that's on that panel? God, I forgot his name.
Anyway, Brady Quinn.
Brady Quinn, thank you. There's an opening there for a coaching type. Yeah. So I think Herman could pull off a gig like that.
I don't know. I think after you flip the bird to the camera on national television on National Signing Day, I think that kind of puts you on the blacklist for a little bit for TV gigs.
Yeah,
on a regular basis.
It could be. You got to wonder now if he sees his trajectory in pro football. I mean, after Texas, it's kind of tough. I mean, how are you going to live up to that again? Mm-hmm. Although you look at Sark, who had the gig at USC, it didn't go well. Go to Alabama, do some rehab, and then you land the Texas gig. So it's going to be very fascinating to see the trajectory of Tom Herman and where he goes from here. And we know where he is now with the Chicago Bears.
Right. And you know how salty he is with a guy like, over going to Carolina after leading the Bears, and he successfully moves up to the NFL. And then over in Arizona, and we'll obviously talk a lot of Arizona today, Mr. Cliff Kingsbury, who gets let go from Tech and then is now doing what he's doing over there. Mr. Ray-Bans just walking around town like the big man on campus, because at this point he is. Yeah. And so Tom Herman he falls upward, I guess, in his mind. But the whole analyst thing to me, how long has that been a thing? Because that seems recent and new, and, fired coaches for whatever reason just decide I'm going to be an analyst rather than directly be under someone. I'm basically their assistant.
Yeah. But I mean, if you think about it, though, you think about the exposure, and as much as we as fans watch, NFL football and college football. You got to believe that, when possible, general managers, people who hire. I mean, it's a great way to just get your mug out there and just put without a lot of the grunt work of being an assistant coach for another team, or doing the heavy lifting that Tom Herman might have to do now with the Chicago Bears. If you were able to sit on a panel, I mean, Tony Romo talks about. He loves it, and it's a whole lot less prep, for his TV gig. There's prep, obviously. You got to know both teams. You got to be ready to go and be an analyst. And I guess it's a lot different what Tony Romo does than if you were part of a panel for a pregame show. But, the power of television to get your face out there and to be top of mind when somebody wants to hire a coach, it has worked for a lot of people.
Yeah, but Tom Herman, I think, is missing one key thing that all people on TV need, and that's personality. Good or bad, I just don't think he has much of one.
Yeah, wow. Well, you mentioned Arizona, and it was maybe the biggest story yesterday, and a lot of people did not see it coming. And J.J. Watt tweeted out the photo of himself in an Arizona Cardinals jersey, lifting weights, and he puts the credit me on Twitter, and the story broke yesterday that J.J. Watt signed with the Arizona Cardinals. A lot of people thought Pittsburgh to play with his brothers. Some people thought Green Bay because he's from Wisconsin. Cleveland was a big rumor for a while. Some people thought, he might try to gravy train with Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not a lot of people saw the Arizona Cardinals come. Shannon, what did you think about it?
I run the socials for the Zone, and so I was kind of doing my mid-afternoon lunchtime checkup, and I was looking at your Adam Schefters and your Ian Rappaport's, and I just so happened to click on JJ because he'd been posting a lot of pictures and some of his catchphrases the last couple of days. And 38 seconds ago, he had tweeted out that photo of him, sourced me in his Arizona Cardinals shirt. By the way, JJ Watt tweeting that for one in Arizona Cardinals shirt while working out has to be the max JJ Watt move I've ever seen of his career. But at first I was like, okay, is he trolling us? Because this almost seems like a JJ Watt move. Because hasn't that happened? Who was it? A wide receiver and I think it was either Atlanta or the Cardinals where they were just it was Odell Beckham Jr.
Okay.
Right. He was working out with down in the team's facility, and so was just wearing one of their shirts for workout. And this was before he landed at the Browns, and so people started speculating. So I didn't know if that was one of those moments until I'm also watching the 4-Letter Network, and they're still talking about where JJ's landing, and I'm like, okay, so maybe this isn't real. And then they break it that okay, this tweet was in fact legit, and he's getting paid to go to the Cardinals.
That's the big story as well. I could not believe the money for a guy who's diminishing skills. I love J.J. Watt. Don't get me wrong. Love him. And I would have wanted him to be a Dallas Cowboy. But $31 million for 2 years with 23 guaranteed? Oh, my God, that's a lot of money.
Do I want to go to a contender or do I want to make a lot of green?
Yeah.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, he was there. Another photo he tweeted out on the jet with his wife on the private jet flying to Arizona. I mean, obviously,
he's always flying private, though.
Oh, yeah, right. But I mean, his wife has to be very, very happy. It's like, JJ, you want to go to Pittsburgh and play with your brothers for maybe 12 million guaranteed, or do we go to Arizona for 2 years for 23 million guaranteed? That's a lot of bank for the family and for a happy wife.
Yeah, they're turning into like the sports power couple, and I know she has her own athletic career, but I'm lazy. I'd be like, listen, I think you got it at this point. I'm going to go ahead and retire. I'm going to retire, and let's get us one of those nice houses like Cliff Kingsbury has.
Sweet.
And you know how all this came about? You heard about Peloton, right?
That was weird. Tell us about that.
Okay, so there's a Twitter feed called JJ Watt, which people, I guess, assumed was his like almost dump account, his backup account, his secret account, whatever. And there was a picture posted of his JJ Watt's Peloton supposed account, and in the bio it had just been changed to there were 3 teams listed, like maybe Chicago and Green Bay and the Bills, and so people were like, it's these are the final 3. We're getting closer and closer. And so about an hour or 2 before he tweeted out this picture of himself in the Cardinals shirt to make his announcement, he said, I don't own a Peloton.
Yeah, so weird. So
it's crazy stuff. But I'm glad the first big domino of supposed free agency has fallen.
Yeah, and we're still waiting for the Dak Prescott sign a big contract with the Cowboys or franchise tag or in whatever order to drop. And of course, there's Deshaun Watson as well. We will talk J.J. Watt. We will talk NFL, NBA. We got a great guest coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Guy who won the national championship at North Carolina as a player, played with Michael Jordan, later coached North Carolina, coached SMU and Notre Dame. Matt Doherty going to join us at 8 o'clock. Lots to talk about, including we'll talk Shaka Smart and the Longhorns with Matt Doherty as well. He's a college basketball analyst as well. So that'll be a fun one at 8 o'clock. We're with you till 9. Sam Freese is your soundscape stylist. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. Her Salty Shakedown coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. I'm Chris. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's the Chris Duel Show.
is one star. Down the sand.
10 seconds.
Welcome back to the Chris Duel Show. I'm Chris Duel, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Shannon and Sam, seconds ago, I've had technical problems with a mouse, a computer mouse. I tried changing the battery. I tried pressing the buttons on it. It's wireless. So, and I can't get online. I can't operate any of the computers in this studio without this mouse. So, Shannon, I just picked it up and I kind of banged it on the countertop a little bit, and it came to life.
Oh, so that mouse is from the 90s then.
I guess. I said, all right, nothing else is working. Let me just bang it a little bit. And it worked. So in a moment, I can't talk and chew gum at the same time, so I can't talk and sign on to my mail accounts. I'll do that in a moment when you're speaking or Sam's speaking. But so I'll jump in. We're streaming live video. We've been doing it since the top of the show. I've just not been able to get onto it, but we will do that. I didn't we were talking about it, Shannon, before the break, J.J. Watt becoming an Arizona Cardinal. We did not get Sam Freese's take on that. Sam, J.J. Watt to Arizona for $31 million for 2 years, reportedly with $23 million guaranteed. Your thoughts about his choice to become an Arizona Cardinal?
Yeah, I mean, I think Shannon nailed it. It seems pretty clear he took the biggest offer instead of the best chance to win now. I mean, J.J. Watt hasn't been worth $23 million guaranteed over 2 years for at least 2 years. I mean, if you really think about it, the Cardinals are probably going to get, knowing his track record over the last couple of years, maybe they get one full season out of him between those 2 years. More likely, they probably get 12 to 14 games, and they're paying basically $2 million a game if he is on the field at the rate he's been on over the last few years. I mean, to me, it just screams a move by a franchise that had money and threw it at a big name. I mean, I don't. Does it make the Cardinals better? Yes, no question. I mean, J.J. Watt is still a good asset on the field when he's healthy. But I also, if I'm a Cardinals fan, I don't feel like this move puts me over the top. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's the final chess piece in a championship defense. But then we'll see. We'll see what else they do in free agency. We'll see what what their draft nights look like. I don't want to rush to bury the Cardinals for signing him, because the only issue with the signing is the amount of money they gave him. I mean, that just, like, bringing J.J. Watt into your building, it's a good move. I mean, it seems like he's a guy that is not going to disrupt your locker room at all or anything in that sense. But just $23 million over 2 years for this version of J.J. Watt, it just screams a PR move over actual team building.
Oh yeah, they'll make that money back in jersey sales.
Exactly.
See, that's a big deal. Yeah, jersey sales, assuming. More and more now, the Spurs made the announcement yesterday that in the second half of the season, they're going to start allowing fans into the AT&T Center, 3,200 fans, socially distant to start with, but assuming that by the time the NFL season gets here, that NFL teams will hopefully get back to capacity soon. I know some estimates with the COVID vaccine are saying that by midsummer, we could be back to very close to normal if everything went just right. So jersey sales and ticket sales, Shannon, I would think a big deal. Plus, as Sam mentioned, culture in that locker room. You bring in a J.J. Watt and, you've got essentially kind of a defensive coach on the field, plus a master motivator and a guy kind of like perhaps a little bit like Tom Brady in Tampa Bay, a guy who can lead by example and show you how to be a better football player.
Yeah, until JJ steps back on the field, most of what you're getting out of him is that guy in the locker room, which can mean a lot, but I'm sure he's itching to get back on the field and play at the level we've seen him play at before, that 3-time defensive player of the year level that really put him on the scene and on the map as one of the best, if not the best I've seen in my lifetime on the defensive side. And he's like one of the few defensive players to be the celebrity that he is, and that is such a rarity. Can we talk about D-Hop tweeting or Instagramming a few weeks ago a fake picture of him and JJ coming together after a game where they both had Cardinals jerseys on, and he captioned it, "Let's finish what we started."
For the unhip DeAndre Hopkins, just in case there's somebody going D-Hop. So yeah,
DeAndre Hopkins, yeah, and there's so many layers to this because if you're Bill O'Brien, people are still hating on you because look at what you've continued to do.
Oh God,
the Arizona Cardinals, they're obviously hoping not to be Texans 2.0, but it's kind of seeming like that's the destination to head to at this point. And now you have Deshaun Watson, who is already wanting a trade, and now we're hearing that he's willing to sit, lose money, and be fined and not play and drag his feet until they trade him. And I'm sure after yesterday's news, he is a ball of fire. Like, get out of that man's way. Get him to where he wants to go. Because they're just the hole. I don't even know. They're just going to fall off the face of the earth at some point because the hole is so deep.
Can you imagine if you're a Texans fan? I mean, arguably or maybe inarguably, your three best players before you traded DeAndre Hopkins for a bag of Doritos, your three best players were Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, and JJ Watt.
Well, and you trade the D-Hop for a bag of Doritos, and then you let JJ walk.
Oh.
So they didn't get anything out of it either.
That's another great point.
And they did right by him by doing that.
Yes.
But to then watch him walk over to the other team where your bag of Doritos came from, that's got to sting.
Now, Sam kind of alluded to this, and I'm reading Wes Perkins. Shannon wrote this on Facebook Live. Wes writes, the Cardinals still won't make the playoffs.
Yeah, they haven't.
The Cardinals obviously have an incredible dynamic quarterback, Kyler Murray, to build around. Now, they're in a division with a lot of really, really good football teams, but do you think if J.J. Watt can come and be 75, 80% of what J.J. Watt once was, and if everything starts to go right, this was an 8-8 team a year ago, do you think the Arizona Cardinals could be on the uptick and could make the playoffs and I would love to see, I don't want the Cardinals to win the Super Bowl, but if the Cowboys can't win it, I'd love to see J.J. Watt get a ring someday. How do you feel about the future of the Arizona Cardinals?
So we talked last week about the 5 teams that are currently leading that HBO Hard Knocks list, and the Cardinals were on that list. I think they just bumped themselves up with the addition of JJ, especially when they had the Texans. They loved following JJ, and JJ loved having them follow him, even though he said differently afterwards. We all know that he asked the cameras to be there when he was working outside of practice hours. And how that show works is they pump up everyone about, all right, well, this will be my second team this year. This will be great. And it's interesting when you look at the division they're in, right? I mean, they have the Seahawks, right?
Yeah.
They have the 49ers, right? And they have the Rams.
Yes.
Right? Rams, brand new quarterback.
It's crazy.
Russell Wilson could be there, could not be there. Jimmy Garoppolo, still a question mark. In San Francisco, so they could be coming into the season seemingly the most stable team with a guy like Kyler Murray, who was going into his off after an incredible season. I like it for them. I like it for the Cardinals. Everyone makes fun of Cliff. Maybe he's not the greatest coach of all time, but he's getting guys, and now that he has them, he's got to do something with them. So yeah, I don't know about playoffs, but if they could win that division, there's your playoff spot anyway.
You mentioned the 49ers, and they seem to be not necessarily sold on Jimmy Garoppolo. Some people speculate, the Niners, a team that were in the Super Bowl just a year ago, they've got a lot of assets. Deshaun Watson, imagine that. Deshaun Watson, that could theoretically be if San Francisco would offer the right parts to the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson on that San Francisco 49er team would be God. That would be very, very frightening.
Yeah. And I would love, I mean, I want to see Deshaun play, so I hope he gets put in a place where he's happy and isn't, sitting on the sideline for the Texans. I did see someone yesterday after this trade this acquirement by the Cardinals was announced that the Texans and Cardinals are set to play each other, which is great. But I don't think you're going to see Deshaun on the other side of AJ.
No. Well, and it's so interesting because Deshaun Watson signed that big mega contract this past September, but that money still doesn't even kick in this season. That was an extension for a lot of money. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was, your typical quarterback mega extension, which will make him one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. And that bar continues to rise and rise and rise and rise, which to the benefit of Dak Prescott every time somebody else signs. But so you mentioned, and there's talk now, Deshaun Watson is saying, hey, man, I'll just sit out the whole season. On one level, the Texans don't lose that much because they're not paying him the mega contract. He's still on his rookie contract for this coming 2021 season. So the Texans, if they say, all right, we'll call your bluff, you sit out. Fine. Let's see how this works out for you. So it's maybe not necessarily so bad on the Texans part, and they'll continue to fine him weekly. But also for Deshaun Watson, it's like he's not losing that mega money by sitting out. He would be losing a year of his rookie contract money and making a point and kind of sticking it to the Texans. This is going to be very, very fascinating to see who blinks first, Deshaun Watson or the Houston Texans.
Yeah, because the one thing you just mentioned, the kind of good things that could come out of this for both sides, that it's not necessarily hurting, but I think where it does hurt is Deshaun and his endorsements. They always love to have whatever, they're always in their jersey for whatever reason. They I just always remember the JJ Watt at like a kid's dance. I think it was a Verizon commercial, but he's there fully dressed to take the field. We know who he is without the uniform. We don't need all that. So that'll hurt in his pockets, because right now that's where most of his money is coming from. And then the Texans, what do? Because you don't really have the money to go get another big name guy while you still have him sitting there. Do you have someone you can get on the cheap who could win you a couple games until the dust does settle and something is resolved?
The Red Rifle is in Dallas. You could go sign the Red Rifle.
Yeah, because he did so well last year.
Well, you had
you can have him.
Tackle. Both offensive tackles were out. So, but see, I wonder if there's a price to be paid by Deshaun Watson if he says, "I'm not coming. I'm sitting out. I will not play another down in a Houston Texans uniform." Does he become, in the eyes of general managers across the NFL, problem child? It's like, do we want to pay all this money to Deshaun Watson because if it gets ugly, or if the going gets tough, or if he sours on us the way he soured on Houston Texans management, we can't trust him to honor his contract? I don't know. I wonder how much of a factor that might be in the eyes of other NFL general managers.
Right. And we all know those owners are so buddy, pinkies out guys that they have more sway in each other's ears than, a quarterback who is as talented as he is can sway them when he plays on the field, because they just don't want to deal with it. I would hope that it doesn't hinder him finding a landing spot that he's happy with, and the Texans hopefully get something good in return, as they should for a guy of that value. But that's a great point. And we see it a lot. We heard about it, when the Cavs we're sitting players, because the Draymond Green's argument that we get upset with the players when they say, I don't want to play, but yet the owners and the team can sit a player because they're on the trading block and they can voice that. And it just, the two sides aren't treated equally in this case. And I think here with Deshaun, he's been so quiet. Everything's been coming out from behind the scenes. We don't really know what that relationship is and why he really wants out, other than what we are able to speculate. And for that, it's hard to say if he really is that kid throwing a tantrum, or if he has some valid points that he's trying to make.
And you mentioned speculation, Shannon. Jack Easterby, this guy who was the New England Patriots chaplain, who worked his way into player personnel, who now apparently is the puppet master for the Houston Texans. I mean, if I'm a Texans fan, and I'm a Cowboys fan first and foremost, so I don't think my second favorite team, because they're in Texas, because they're, you know, three and a half hours to the east of where I live, are the Houston Texans. But if I live in Houston and I'm a Texans fan, and you let DeAndre Hopkins get away for a bag of Doritos, and you ran Deshaun Watson out of town, and you let J.J. Watt get away, and if we do find out these rumors are true that Jack Easterby is just a power-hungry Machiavellian snake that is destroying this team, and that Cal McNair, the owner, is allowing him to do that. I just wonder, we just talked about ticket sales for the Arizona Cardinals, bringing J.J. Watt there. I just wonder if there's a price to be paid for the Houston Texans in ticket sales and season ticket sales for Jack Easterby. If he's as big of a snake and as negative of an influence on the Houston Texans as he seems to be. We'll talk more NFL. We'll talk some Texas Longhorns. The Horns in action in hoops tonight. Speaking of hoops, Matt Doherty, a man who played alongside Michael Jordan, won the national championship in North Carolina, was a big-time college basketball coach and now a college basketball analyst. Matt Doherty going to join us at 8:06. We'll even talk Texas Longhorns with Matt Doherty. Lots coming your way. Sam Priest is your soundscape stylist. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. I'm Chris. We're with you till 9. It's the Chris Duel Show. Steve Duraco, good morning. Jason Paniagua, David Pryor, Luisa Alanis, Tracy Bogert, who I think has left us, said he was going to leave, had to move on. Foamfoot 420, Elizabeth Jones, Laura Burris, Jason Garcia, Alan Green, anybody whose name I did not mention because I didn't see you, Leo Zambrano, good morning. Okay. I'm going to grab more coffee. It's so weird. I had internet problems. You're so used to the internet for everything you do that when it goes away, and granted, I had my phone, but I'm so used to surfing on a computer screen like this one. It's just completely jars your world when your internet is taken away from you. All right, I'll be right back. But what I did was, it was all the mouse, and the freaking mouse was dead. And I tried everything. I got another mouse from another studio, see if that one worked. No. I took the battery out. I changed batteries. No, that it was absolutely dead. So then I thought, I haven't tried this yet. I kind of didn't really pound it, but knocked on the counter with it, and it came to life. That is so weird. Uh-oh, now is it working now? Now I'm not seeing the mouse now that I said that. Oh, now it's not working again. Well, at least I'm on here. The mouse is now not working again. I might have to pound on it again. All right, be right back. All right. Is it or isn't it? Doesn't look like it's working now. Come on. Ah. And then I whack it and it works. God. That is so weird. Weird. I have a very ornery mouse this morning. Good morning, Beth Settle. Welcome in. Leo says sometimes you got to just pound that mouse. All right, let's see here. Thank God for coffee. Caffeine, the wonder drug that works wonders. Woo! Barney Segura, good morning. Welcome in. Hello to everybody on Facebook Live. Thank you. Carl Fisher, welcome in. Here we come, hour number 2 on a Taco Tuesday.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side.
Now, Chris Duel.
Welcome into the 7 o'clock hour on a Taco Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021, on a Texas Longhorns game day / game night. They are at Iowa State tonight. That's a 6 o'clock tip-off. We'll talk a little Longhorn basketball. We'll talk a lot of college hoops 1 hour from now. Former North Carolina player. Played alongside Michael Jordan at North Carolina. They are friends. He was later the head coach at North Carolina. Also, he was head coach at Notre Dame and SMU. Now a basketball analyst, Matt Doherty, going to join us 1 hour from now in the 8 o'clock hour. We will talk basketball. We will talk NFL football. We've been talking a lot about J.J. Watt. Shannon Salty Sweeney, do you know the name Marshall Goldberg?
No, am I supposed to? You're gonna have to help me out.
You would. I would be very impressed if you did.
I've seen the Goldbergs on ABC, so that's my closest.
You
guess.
have that, and I would not have known the name. Marshall Goldberg is even before my time, but Marshall Goldberg is the current retired number 99 for the Arizona Cardinals. He played in the 1940s. Let me see. I've got his information here. He played from he was drafted in 1939. He played in the 1940s. He was a superstar. The jersey was retired. When he retired, he was inducted into the team's Ring of Honor in the year 2006, just months after he died at 88. And again, do not wait until people die if you're going to honor them. Now, that's the bad news. The good news, his daughter, Ellen Goldberg Tullos, says the family is fine if the Arizona Cardinals would like to unretire the number 99. She says she's sure her dad would be okay with it. She said about J.J. Watt, quote, "He has my blessings, and I'm sure my father would be more than delighted for him to carry it on." So no official word yet, Shannon, that J.J. Watt would wear number 99, but I mean, how can he not, right?
I love that you brought this up because I was just looking at his profile to see, you mentioned earlier the picture of him in the jet. When he announced that he was leaving the Texans, he had changed his Twitter bio to just #99. There's nothing in that bio now. So maybe he's considering this a fresh start, a rebrand, if you will. But I like that they would allow him to wear it if he wanted to. I mean, of all the guys, he's a Walter Payton Man of the Year. He's done incredible things. Will continue to do incredible things. I think they would make the family proud with the 99. And kind of how cool would it be, like, after JJ played in that jersey, if he was then added to their Hall of Honor, Ring of Honor, whatever they have there in Arizona, 299.
Be nice.
Come on.
Just to be sure, and I thought so, I just Googled J.J. Watt's number at Wisconsin, and it was 99. So right. Dude has always, at least in college, I see some high school photos where he might not be 99, but he has always been number 99 at Wisconsin and with the Houston Texans. So
do they have a 00 in the NFL?
Yeah. Yeah, they do. In the 70s, the Houston Oilers had a wide receiver named Ken Burrow, who wore that. Was the first 00 that I saw as a kid, and I thought that's weird. 00, so you could be 00.
I feel like that'd be a move for him if he weren't to go with 99.
That'd be pretty cool. He's got to be number 99. Plus, now you've got the daughter of the dude, Marshall Goldberg, saying it's okay. So yeah, you definitely do that. Plus, what's kind of cool now, if you're the Goldberg family, I mean, I'm a hardcore NFL fan. You are, Shannon. Sam Freese, had you heard of Marshall Goldberg before this morning?
No, I think you educated quite a few of us out here. I'd never heard that name.
So
I will say, at first when I heard Goldberg, I immediately thought of the wrestler Goldberg, who was out, handing out water with us last week at that apartment complex that still didn't have water here in town. But I would never have come up with an Arizona Cardinals connection at all.
So I think the good news for the Goldberg family and for the memory of Marshall Goldberg is, if J.J. Watt wears number 99, and now the family is saying we're cool with it, that makes us remember Marshall Goldberg. And I would imagine, J.J. Watt probably educates people. I'm sure J.J. Watt goes back and learns more about Marshall Goldberg and probably will encourage people to go check him out. So it almost kind of resurrects Marshall Goldberg in a lot of people's memory. And those of us who are hardcore NFL football fans will go and learn about this guy. So I think that's a win-win.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic story. I'm doing some research now, just seeing if anyone has already made a JJ Watt jersey that they just automatically put the 99 on. There's some Arizona giveaways over there where they're giving away JJ Watt jerseys. There's no photo of them, but they're giving them away this week. So maybe they know something we don't, that a number is coming.
It's the right thing to do. I mean, in any other numbers, it would just look weird. I mean, I know it's been done, and I know, Joe Montana went from number 16 with the San Francisco 49ers to number 19 with the Kansas City Chiefs. So, I mean, it happens. I get it, but come on. J.J. Watt's number 99, baby.
So is that like LeBron to you? He's number 23, not 6.
I think so.
And for you, is Kobe 24 or is he 8?
Wow, those are great questions.
Because they retired both of those at the Staples Center.
See, the beauty is both of those guys are both of those numbers. What's amazing, and it's interesting that it is Kobe and LeBron who both wore 2 different numbers, but you still associate them with both numbers. I mean, it works. It makes sense. So that's kind of cool. Plus, you had Bruce Bowen of the San Antonio Spurs, who was number 12. It was retired. It was hoisted into the rafters. And then here came LaMarcus Aldridge, and Bruce Bowen said, do it. Take my number. Go wear number 12. It's yours too. So
this just keeps reminding me of the conversation we had last week about Carson Wentz and his inability to get the number that he wants. And now JJ, a defensive player, is going to the Cardinals where that number is retired, and they're like, oh, no, totally, let him have it. Yeah,
Jason Paniagua pointing out a Hall of Famer. You brought up number 00, Shannon. Oakland Raiders center Jim Otto was number 00. And he was like one of the best centers in the 1960s and 70s. And it's kind of interesting. His name was Otto, O-T-T-O, Jim Otto, and he wore number 00, and his name started with O and ended with O, Otto. So that makes almost total poetic sense for Jim Otto.
He knew what he was doing with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of alluded to this, and just to underscore it a little bit, I think it's a good sign, just for all of us, that the San Antonio Spurs, who are conservative in many ways. They're conservative when it comes to resting players. They're conservative when it comes to bringing players back from injury. And they have been, and rightfully so, very conservative when it comes to allowing fans into the AT&T Center. They made an announcement yesterday that they will begin allowing fans back into the AT&T Center starting on March 12th, when they officially begin the second half of their season at the AT&T Center. They will start with a reduced capacity of approximately 3,200 people to maintain physical distancing, which makes total sense. And they will have requirements. You're going to have to wear a face mask, of course. You're going to have to complete a mobile health screening before you arrive. So you're going to have to get a health pass, and the health pass is required for entry. So apparently you're going to have to apply and get the health pass. Temperatures will be taken at the door, which makes total sense. So hopefully, Shannon, this is just another step in the right direction to normalcy, and hopefully we get there later in 2021. But I guess 3,200 fans is a whole lot better than 0, which is where we've been for the Spurs at the AT&T Center.
Right, and of course they wanted to open the center back up for fans at the beginning of the year for that game against the Lakers. So now we're getting it with the Magic. But I think, when in reading about all of the cautionary details that they've put into place here, I mean, everything is going cashless now and touchless. They're going to have screen cleaners for those electronic payments. They've even got a quote-unquote clean team that'll be working around the clock at AT&T Center. And they upgraded the Wi-Fi because, as we know, when you pack a ton of people into one place, that Wi-Fi gets weaker and weaker. And so they've upped it so that you don't have any frustration when trying to buy some nachos in your cashless payment. So I think it's the best move. They even said they upgraded the air purifying system in the stadium. So giving them that time to implement these things that'll probably be around for the foreseeable future. I mean, hand sanitizer stations everywhere. Those should stay. Cashless is just the way everything is kind of going these days anyway. The only thing that makes me nervous is what happens if that Wi-Fi does go out, or
the mouse goes out. I found that out this morning.
Or you got a Karen who's like a cash only lady, and she's like trying to force a $5 bill down your throat.
Yeah, Karen, it's 2021, darling.
I think waiting was the right move for them, and I think they're completely prepared to host the fans they've got coming in 10 days from now.
It's interesting, the whole cashless thing that you talk about, Shannon. I mean, all my life I've heard, long before the coronavirus pandemic, was that dollar bills, or whatever the denomination, $10, $20 bills, $5 bills, are very dirty because they go in and out of hands. They're put in pockets. God knows where people might put them.
Right.
But the worst part was, they were in people's hands. And they used to find, in the 80s, they used to test bills, and they would always find, this was interesting, trace amounts of cocaine and other drugs on bills. So you think now, especially in the coronavirus era, it's like, cashless probably makes a lot more sense.
I like going cashless, but when I spend cash, it makes me feel like I'm not actually spending money because I don't see it in my bank account. But spending cash, it brings me great anxiety, right? Especially in like a drive-through scenario when I'm having to deal with the change and I didn't hear the amount correctly so I got to wait till I get to the window, and then I'm fumbling around looking for a certain denomination. So I'm a fan of losing cash. But then also people need to stop giving me cash. You can just direct deposit that.
True. But if you ever lose your phone, or as you mentioned, if Wi-Fi ever goes out,
right,
or if the grid ever goes out, we found out, power wise in Texas, when things go south with technology, how bad things can get. It just makes you wonder.
You knew things were changing when the Girl Scouts, you walk by them and you're like, oh, I don't have cash on me. Like, oh, we take PayPal now. We do Venmo. Do whatever you want. We have a card reader. The truth is, little girl, I bought 10 boxes yesterday. I don't need more.
Yes. So are you a Thin Mints person when it comes to Girl Scout cookies?
Thin Mints out of the freezer, and peppermint patty. I don't know what they're not peppermint. Peanut butter patties.
Yeah,
from the fridge.
Oh, those are good too. Yeah, when I start eating the Thin Mints, if I open a sleeve,
that's a sleeve at a time.
It's like, it's not good for me.
There's no holding that.
I think I have a problem.
Yeah, I did really well last year. I got 3 boxes of Thin Mints, and I spaced them out throughout the year. But that was like a Sunday night football watching. Like, I'll only eat half a sleeve because I need to ration what I have left until the next season comes around.
That's smart. Just put a calendar on your refrigerator and say I can only have one sleeve in the first 2 weeks of March. That might be a good thing. We mentioned the Longhorns in action tonight. You talked about it yesterday, Shannon, the fact they are at Iowa State. Iowa State is not a good team. We've said this before, though, and there have been tight games. You would think this is a get-well game for the Texas Longhorns, but as we found out this season, anything is possible. No team is safe, and with this Longhorns team, pretty much expect the unexpected.
How many get-well games do you need, or do you get like this one? This one will right the ship. This is where we take off. Like, no, we're past that point. And hearing Shaka talk yesterday, he was asked, what things could the team be doing better down the stretch when we seem to always be in these game finishing situations, and what he could do better. And he basically rattled off and called out players on things that they personally could do better and what the team could do better. And then for him, he was like, and I can just, talk to him better, basically is what he said. I could, well, yeah, coach him up. That's your job. And he blamed some of their shot selection. I'm like, you're the coach. You're the one who gives green lights and red lights on players who can shoot and where they can shoot, this, that, and the other. He mentioned how 3 points are better than 2. It's like, oh, okay, so that's why they're shooting all the threes. What he meant by that when he said it was to drive the hole, hit the basket, and get an and one, because you want to take those high percentage shots, because as we know, Texas has just been throwing up threes. They did score 29% in that game versus Tech, was up from the 19% against Kansas, but still not a great percentage. It's not looking great. Feels like a trap game to me in a major way.
My God, if it's a trap game, Iowa State 2-18 overall. You talked about this yesterday, 0-15 in the Big 12. If they find a way to lose this one, oh my God, there's going to be hell to pay, I would think.
And they've lost their last 14. And we saw Texas play Texas Tech, who would come in after losing their last 3. And that didn't go very well for Texas. So don't play down like you typically do. Play up. And even if you're up by 19 points at halftime, maybe still account for the changes they will make in the second half. Because I think if I'm coaching against Texas, I'm saying we're doing a 2-3 zone. We're going to pack it in, and if we just beat their press, we got a good press break. Easy money, game in hand. Call it W's, because Texas can't handle that.
Now, you mentioned Shaka Smart talking to the media yesterday was calling out specific players on what they can do better. Is this typical for Shaka Smart to mention names, or might we be seeing the beginning of kind of a little bit of a meltdown?
This year I've heard him mention names a couple of times. Like he'll say, oh, well, they did this really well on the offense, but on the defensive side, he really struggled this, that, and the other. It feels like because Shaka is in his 6th year, he's running out of excuses. He doesn't take enough ownership. And that's me as a fan saying that, no, it's not all the players' fault. No, it's not all the coach's fault, but there is some ownership to be taken because it's from the top down. You are the head coach. You should be admitting that a lot of this is on your back at this time. We're tired of the excuses, and it's just that's where he's at now, because he's got not much left other than to blame the guys that are actually on the floor.
And I wonder if specifically because of the fact that the Longhorns blew out Tom Herman after a year when it was a disappointing year, but Texas did have a winning record. They do go to a bowl game. It was the Alamo Bowl, but they blew out their opponent in the Alamo Bowl and set a bowl game scoring record for the Longhorns. I wonder if, because he now knows that, the athletic director and the Longhorns as a university now, the powers that be, aren't going to be patient. And even if you win and have a winning season, and even if you go to the postseason, that doesn't necessarily mean that you keep your job. I wonder if that creates a new level of pressure for Shaka Smart, knowing that Tom Herman was blown out, that he may be next, that he did not feel a year ago.
It's incredible to see the parallels going on between Texas football and Texas basketball right now. As you mentioned, Tom Herman and Shaka Smart. Tom had a hard time winning the games he was supposed to win, and only every now and then was winning games that he wasn't likely to win. We see that with Shaka, right? He gets the 2-0 victory over Kansas this season, but he's dropped 0-2 to Tech, where you would argue, okay, Texas should be winning at least one of those. Yes, you're in the Big 12 where everyone likes to beat up on each other because it is a great league. But if you want to stand out, you've got to be better than that. And as we saw with Herman, it doesn't matter what you do in the postseason. A lot of these decisions are made ahead of that. And most people at this point, I don't think they feel very confident about should Texas make the tournament for them to make a deep run.
We will have that game for you in San Antonio, Texas at Iowa State. It'll be on Ticket 760 in San Antonio on television. It's on ESPN Plus. You can access that game. Coming up, Shannon's Salty Shakedown, also this day in sports history, sports birthdays, and more. And coming up at the top of the hour, a man who won the national championship at North Carolina, played alongside Michael Jordan and James Worthy and Kenny the Jet Smith, Matt Doherty. He also coached North Carolina, Notre Dame, and SMU. We'll talk about his life. He's got a new book out that Michael Jordan wrote the introduction to. We'll also talk Longhorns and Shaka Smart with Matt Doherty. And if he feels Shaka Smart is on the hot seat, that'll be at the top of the hour. We're with you till 9. Sam Freese is your soundscape stylist. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. I'm Chris. You're listening to The Chris Duel Show. Woo! Mary Anthony says, I am vaccinated but will wait. Paused my season ticket until 2021-2022. Mary Anthony is the Spurs good luck charm for those of you scoring at home. I think I'm going to heat up my coffee. My coffee's lukewarm, so I might fire it up in the microwave. Let's see if I've got what I need, though. Nope, that's not it. There it is. Okay.
Taco Tuesday on the Chris Duel Show with me, Shannon Selby Sweet, and of course the talented Mr. Chris Duel. I want to take this moment to remind everyone that Water Wednesday is tomorrow, March 3rd, from 11 a.m. to noon here in iHeart in Austin. Come pick up a free case of Mana Nalu water. It's Jason Momoa. You may know him as Aquaman, or even from Game of Thrones for all you Game of Thrones fans. Drive by 3601 South Memphis Avenue in Austin to come get your free case of water. We know so many people are still struggling at this time without water, thanks to the lovely winter storm we've been having. So get your water. It's something everyone needs, and this water from Jason is all canned, all aluminum cans. He's really big into the environment. He says that for every can, it automatically goes back. 60 days later, it's back on the shelves after being recycled for the next person to drink some delicious water from. Chris, are y'all doing a water drive? Because I think our boss may have been delivering some water yesterday to San Antonio.
Yes, we've got, I don't have the details in front of me right now, but yes, we are. And it's very, very cool. And as soon as I can get a hold of those details, I'll pass them along.
Awesome.
Very nice.
And also probably take this moment to remind everyone that we've got Mr. Matt Daughtry. Doherty? I can't say his last name. Doherty. Matt Doherty.
Yes.
Daughtry. That's a band.
All right. We'll try to get Daughtry on the show too. Daughtry's.
Yeah.
Maybe we get Matt Doherty and Daughtry, and Daughtry opens up with a little song, and then maybe a duet with Matt Doherty and Daughtry.
Cool. I was reading all about this guy yesterday. I actually pulled up his Wikipedia during a break yesterday, and it is long. So I said, I will wait and read this when I get home, and went to his little website. He's got so many names that vouch for him.
Yeah.
I want to be in his group chat. I want to be in his friend circle.
Well, and I wonder, and we'll talk to him about this, and in a moment we'll dive right into sports history, sports birthdays, and Shannon's salty shakedown. But the choice he made coming out of high school to go to North Carolina, had he gone anywhere else, he wouldn't have played with Michael Jordan and James Worthy and Kenny the Jet Smith and Sam Perkins and under Dean's. I mean, man, he made the right choices early in life. Anyway, we'll get into it with him. An amazing life, and now a really cool book that he wrote called Rebound, which I think speaks to all of us when we need to rebound in life. We'll get into that with Matt Doherty coming up at the top of the hour. But right now, this day in sports history, this was the day in sports history that Wilt Chamberlain scored his 100 points, most ever by an NBA player in a single game. The Philadelphia Warriors beat the New York Knicks 169-147. 100 of those 69 points by Wilt Chamberlain. He was 36 of 63 from the field, 28 of 32 from the free throw line. Shannon, can you imagine 100 points in a darn NBA game? That's crazy.
Was there no clock?
Good question.
Was it first 169?
I do know this. There's no footage of it. I mean, it exists. Yeah, there are still photos, but there's no actual film. There's no black and white film of it.
That seems suspicious.
I know. It's like people saying we never landed on the moon and Wilt never scored 100 points in a game.
That season, or the fact that he averaged over 50 points a game for that entire season?
That's insane.
I think
both
it's 50 points.
Yeah,
average, right?
Both of them blow my mind, but you're right. A 50-point average is crazy. Everything else on this day kind of pales in comparison. On this day in 2004, the Indianapolis Colts signed Peyton Manning to a 7-year, $98 million deal with a $34.5 million signing bonus. At that time, it was the largest contract in NFL history. Now they just go up and up and up and up. And finally, on this day in 2012, the NFL did come down hard on the New Orleans Saints for Bounty Gate, where players were given incentives to injure opposing players, and head coach Sean Payton was suspended for the entire 2012 season. That's this day in sports history. We got 3 sports birthdays for you. 1939, Denny Crum, college basketball coach, won the NCAA championship in 1980, coaching the University of Louisville. He went to 6 Final Fours, born on this day in 1937 in San Fernando, California. Also born on this day, Big Ben Roethlisberger, born on this day in 1982. Couple of Super Bowls, won it in 2005. Big Ben Roethlisberger, born in Lima, Ohio. I did not know that. And finally, born on this day in 1985, the guy who nearly personally destroyed my college football program, the USC Trojans, Reggie Bush. Hope your parents enjoy the condo, Reggie. Reggie Bush, born on this day in 1985 in Spring Valley, California. Those are your birthdays, and now it's time for the Salty Shakedown.
Well, real quick, 1982, that makes Big Ben 39?
I do believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Wow, I thought he was like 36. I didn't know he was knocking
He's
on
always
the door of
kind
40.
of looked old. I think it's the beard and the scruffiness, but
Yeah.
he's kind of always looked older. Well, let's talk another quarterback hitting that age range, Mr. Drew Brees. He is yet to officially announce whether he will come back and play for the Saints next season or whether he's heading off into retirement. I'm starting to think that he is going to stick around because he had that conversation about a week and a half ago with New Orleans. That was this big to do. Everybody thought that would be the day we would get the final word. And all we've been getting lately are training videos of him. Now, whether those are rehab videos or just him working out because it's the off season and that's what the best players in the league do. They work out when no one's watching except their friend with that camera. And then they post about it. So a lot of New Orleans Saints fans seem to be worried that he's coming back because they just don't think he has it in him, especially that arm strength after that injury. But from these workout videos, the one posted yesterday, said, the comment under it for the caption was, "We're doing something a little squirrely." He was moving weights down the middle of a street, just running as hard as he could, pushing those weights, a lot of weights for a guy as little as Drew Brees. But what about you? What are you feeling about Drew Brees? You know, we heat check Dak Prescott every day. Will he want to get signed? How are you feeling about Drew Brees in this moment, coming back or officially saying, you know what, I'm done?
Such a weird story because, as we know, a couple of weeks ago, he took a huge contract reduction, which there's a few ways to look at that. You know, he's opening up space for the Saints to sign other players. I'm wondering, you know, we just mentioned Sean Payton on this day being suspended for the 2012 season for Bountygate. You know, if you're Sean Payton, you probably had that conversation with Drew Brees and said, hey, man, let's not make a hasty decision, because if you're Sean Payton, you know, maybe you do want to look at all of your quarterbacks, and maybe you do want to leave the door open for Drew Brees. And it probably, especially if he's going to come back at a reduced rate. And we know this about all athletes, Shannon. It's hard to walk away. You've been doing this your whole life. Nobody illustrated this more than Brett Favre when he went back and forth and then could not leave the NFL and wound up playing with the Jets and later for the Vikings. So I would say right now I would lean like 51% he sticks around, 49% he walks away.
Well, as we know, he was at the golf course last Tuesday waiting for Tiger Woods to arrive for their little golf film session. And some people saw that as, okay, maybe Drew sees this and says, you know what, I'm healthy enough to play with my kids. I've been injured before in the league. I don't want to get too injured to where I miss out on having a normal life and being there for my kids. Maybe it's best for me to step away. Or he sees it as, I've still got it. Tiger may never play professionally ever again. If I can still play, I want to play. So I don't. It's interesting that these videos keep coming out. I don't know. Maybe he's doing like a JJ where he's kind of dropping hints here and there, and we could expect something soon. But I do love that he's working out, whether it's for just rehabbing to rehab, because of course he was injured last season, or if he's just getting in shape for training camp. All right, moving on. We've been discussing the Spurs and them allowing 3,200 fans in beginning March 12th. And all the kind of upgrades that I'm sure will stick around, everything going cashless. They've upgraded the Wi-Fi, so there shouldn't be an issue of you losing service to pay with your phone. The clean team will be out and about cleaning all those screens and floors. I'm sure. I'm curious if bathroom attendants are going to start to become a thing here in the U.S., because I know they're already a thing in Europe. But I mean, they haven't had them yet, which is weird considering where we are in the pandemic. But it was announced that Alabama plans to have a full stadium for their football season next year. Texas kind of said the said thing, but Alabama made it official yesterday. That stadium holds 100,000 plus. And just for everyone's information, Alabama right now, 13% vaccination rate, which is the lowest in the U.S. On the other hand, you get all these 100,000 people that are in a controlled environment where they can say, hey, wear a mask or get kicked out or what have you, follow our rules or you're gone. Because we know last year with their limited number of fans, a lot of fans then went to bars, videos of thousands of maskless students running around, drinking, watching the games on their own accord. So maybe it would be better for them to get into the stadium. What are you thinking about football? Or is it just better for them to say, here are all the tickets, and then they can retract them? Should they need to have less people in the stands? Is it too soon to say we're going to be completely full? Is it just kind of speaking it into existence at this point? Where are you with this?
I think it makes sense for football to say we're going to go full capacity, because if you get to, say, June or July and we're still not where we should be with the pandemic, then you have to scale it back. We found out last year that with very little time, you if you have to, you can change things. So for football to plan for it, and I love what you say, speak it into existence, maybe that makes sense. And the other thing you mentioned, it's true, enforce your rules. It's like, Alabama, probably more hardcore rabid fans than anywhere on the planet. It's like, all right, if you guys want to come into the stadium, you got to wear the mask. I know probably half the Alabama fans and residents don't even believe that masks are necessary. There's a big anti-mask backlash among some people, but if they enforce the rules and keep everybody as safe as possible, then that makes sense to me.
Yeah, a big reason I decided to forego Texas football games last year was because of the mask thing. Obviously, I wear a mask when I'm out in public, but I can barely wear it for 30 minutes when I'm at HB. Wearing it that long for a game, I think I just become really claustrophobic, especially those first few games of the season when it's 100 degrees out there. No, thank you. So I would hope that if they are allowing 100% capacity, that at least the masks at that point aren't a requirement. Wear them if that's your thing. I'm sure tons of people will just continue to wear masks all the time. Do you? I'm here for it. They've come out with a lot of creative and cute looking ones. I get it. They're basically a fashion statement now. But that'll certainly be interesting. It should be interesting too. It's just see if football is the first one to go back 100% capacity. We obviously have the baseball season coming up. The NBA finishing out their season, and then what they do with the Olympics. And if there are some sports maybe where they don't allow people, maybe there are sports where they do allow people, and how many. If they do, of course, we need to get to the Olympics first. Hopefully they will be played. Moving on to Mr. LeBron James, probably one of the biggest advocates for Taco Tuesday. And we know this because he used to film almost every Tuesday a video of him dining usually in his backyard of his house, screaming, Taco Tuesday! Almost annoying fans at that. Maybe that's why he stopped after the one with Anthony Davis. But the house, best known for his Taco Tuesdays, is now in the market for $20 million. It's in the Brentwood area of California, Los Angeles, of course, just down the street from where Mr. OJ was living back in the day when, the thing he did or did not do took place. And if you're wondering, well, where is LeBron living now? Well, no worries. With that giant new contract, he now has a $36 million home in Beverly Hills. Now, the home that is up for sale, as I mentioned, $20 million, has a master bedroom with its own balcony, has a living room that basically looks like a media theater room, but don't worry, there's one of those too. So basically 2 theaters, a library, because as we all know, LeBron is an avid reader, right? He just reads all the time. Especially encyclopedias. I hear that's his favorite. He loves to read. So that'll
You're not
be
making that up? He reads encyclopedias?
I'm making it up. I'm totally making it
My
up.
God, I thought you knew something I didn't know.
No. I
reads encyclopedias?
He had a place that had a library. I love the real estate. I like looking at real estate. I spend too much time on the Zillows and the Realtors.com. But I also love looking into these homes that are larger than life. can't even imagine living there. Like my house, I'm like, hey, I can flip my fireplace on with a switch.
Ooh.
So living pretty large over here. And then I see that we talked about the Tony Parker documentary a few months back and how he has not one pool, but about 7 pools for his water park that he pretty much has in his backyard. And how awesome those are. What's the coolest sports athlete house you've ever seen pictures of, or have you even been to one?
I haven't been to one, and I'm forgetting the guy's name, but the guy you see at the NBA games, like gray hair, mainly a Lakers fan in the hat. He's been to Spurs games before, and I'm forgetting his name right now. Anyway, he bought, and we just talked about him, Wilt Chamberlain's house because he's a fan. He's got money, and he just decided I want to buy and live in Wilt Chamberlain's house because I'm a Lakers fan. So I've seen on video, tours, and again, Wilt was big in the 70s. I've seen tours of Wilt Chamberlain's house, but so I've never, but I did see when David Robinson sold his house I think it was in the Dominion. There were like aerial views that he had a basketball court in the backyard with Spurs logos on the basketball court. So I did appreciate that when I saw that.
That's pretty cool. Some of these players stay within their means, and that's great. But then others, if you're LeBron and you know that I'm only leaving this team if I say I'm leaving this team, you can make those cool additions to your home that are almost unimaginable to us regular folk. Like I said, flip of a switch for my fireplace. I am living my life, my best life, especially during this cold weather season. That wraps up today's Salty Shakedown. Of course, we'll get that posted later on the Chris Duel page blog.
And I've got mixed emotions about LeBron James wanting to co-opt and own Taco Tuesday. I mean, I feel a little bit
because he's from Ohio.
Yeah, well, and to me, I feel like tacos are Texas. Right. I feel that in South Texas and Central Texas, Austin, San Antonio, that we are the mecca of tacos, not California. And I know there's tacos out in California. I used to live out there, but the best tacos are here. So I mean, yet you can flip it and say at least he's popularizing tacos and Taco Tuesday. I should be happy about that, but I don't know. I go back and forth on that.
I mean, the tacos that he would be eating on his Taco Tuesday, there's a trend on TikTok, and it's literally just a jingle that goes, "White people taco night." And it's like where you buy the Taco Bell shells from your HEB and your ground beef and your Taco Bell seasoning, and you throw all that together, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's delicious. I do it quite often myself. But I can see where you're coming from. Should he really be the voice of the NBA for tacos?
And if it's not LeBron James as the voice of the NBA or the voice of or the embodiment of Taco Tuesday, then who should it be? And I don't necessarily have the answer to that question.
Yeah, I don't either.
Since I mean, if Anthony Bourdain were still alive, maybe some kind of a culinary expert,
right?
You said you watch some kind of cooking shows. Who do you watch these days?
I love Gordon Ramsay.
There you go.
Hell's Kitchen, 24 Hours to Hell and Back, those kind of things.
So maybe a Gordon Ramsay, maybe not. I don't know.
He never does takeout, and the only time he's ever done takeout is apparently from a barbecue joint here in town. So maybe he's still looking for his perfect taco to take home.
It's got to be somebody who loves tacos. Nonetheless, we stand for Taco Tuesday. Coming up, Matt Doherty, coach, player, analyst. We'll talk all kinds of basketball history, his life in basketball, and how does he feel about the upcoming NCAA tournament? How does he feel about Shaka Smart and the Texas Longhorns? That and a whole lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show.
All flown on, all right. Flown on.
Matt Doherty. Doherty.
Randy Raspberry wishing you a happy belated birthday on Facebook Live. Bernard Trefan, welcome in. Leo says tacos are a gift from the indigenous Aztec Empire to be shared and loved by all. Long live the taco. Thank you, sir. Cool, man. Thank you.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
Now, Chris Duel.
Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021. Welcome in. It is Taco Tuesday. And this day, March 2nd, also significant in that it is the day that Matt Doherty's book, Rebound, From Pain to Passion, Leadership Lessons Learned, drops. He will join us in just a moment. It is the Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney, and we are very excited to have our guest here to start the 8 o'clock hour. What a career in the world of basketball. And notably at North Carolina, he won a national championship and played alongside stars like James Worthy, Sam Perkins, Kenny the Jet Smith, Brad Doherty, and a guy named Michael Jordan. Went on to be a head coach at Notre Dame, North Carolina, FAU, and SMU. And again, the brand new book is Rebound. Matt Doherty, welcome in. How are you doing this morning?
Doing great. I appreciate the live applause there. That's impressive, Chris. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hard to get that studio audience, with COVID and everything, but we're happy to do it. Yeah, Matt, I look at your career, and it just is so amazing what you've done in the world of basketball. And I think about your time at North Carolina with, under Dean Smith, the legendary Dean Smith. And I wonder, had you not chosen North Carolina, how different your life might have been. I mean, you crossed paths with so many legends. When you were coming out of high school, what other colleges other than North Carolina were you considering, or did you always know you were going to be a Tar Heel?
Well, I fell in love with the Tar Heels in 8th grade, I think it was. Dean Smith coached the 76 Olympic team, and there were 4 Tar Heel players on that roster. And then the very next season, they went to the Final Four in 77, and they had Michael Korn as a freshman star player. And I was a 9th grader at the time. So that's kind of the time where you really foster, a love affair with your sports heroes and teams. And so at that point, I really admired Carolina and the ACC, but I didn't know if they were going to recruit me at that stage. So it came down to, for me, 3 ACC schools: Duke, Virginia, North Carolina, and being Irish Catholic from New York, I was being recruited by Notre Dame and grew up loving the Irish as well.
So Matt, you ultimately obviously went to North Carolina to play for the Tar Heels, and then you get there and there's this guy named Michael Jordan. Was there a feeling there that he would be the GOAT of basketball that we know today, or was he just another guy on the team?
Well, Salty, and by the way, Salty, and your last name again?
Sweeney.
Sweeney, I love it. A good Irish girl, right?
That's right.
There you go. Salty, all Irish girls are, they got to be tough growing up in an Irish household. So anyway, Salty, Michael Jordan was a freshman my sophomore year. And I remember him coming in, and he was very, had a little bit of a swagger, a confidence, and his talent, but he really listened and competed and got better, and his attention to detail. He wanted to be coached. The thing that stood out was his ability to leave his feet and hang around the goal and find a spot to softly kiss the ball off the glass. Out of respect to Dr. J and Larry Bird and Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, and all those guys, at that point, I couldn't say, he's going to be the best ever, because he wasn't even the best guy on our team at that time. That was James Worthy. Great team. And then after his freshman year, we always played pickup games with the NBA guys in the summer, and we had an all-pro Walter Davis, jerseys in the rafters, played for the Phoenix Suns, and Michael was really giving it to Walter. And I remember sitting in the stand saying, yo, Michael, that's Walter Davis. Like, chill. And that's when it kind of like, wow. But to say he's going to be the greatest of all time, I don't think anybody in the right mind could have said that at that point.
Matt Doherty with us. Matt, you talk about great coaches ever, and certainly Dean Smith. He's certainly up there in the pantheon with the John Woodens or the Coach K's that we've all known as some of the greatest coaches in basketball history. I hear so many. For example, UCLA players like Bill Walton will talk about, how John Wooden shaped their lives. What was it like to play for Dean Smith, and how much of an influence was he on you, on Michael Jordan, James Worthy, and the guys you played with?
He had a huge influence. He Chris, he just was truly a teacher and truly a father figure. And it's kind of funny now because in the executive coaching business I'm in, there's so many parallels when I talk to executives and their teams. And I make so many references to Coach Smith that it's kind of scary. It's like as you grow up and you're raising your kids, you say the things to your kids that you hated your parents saying to you. But as you get older, you knew they were right. So he had a huge influence. He truly cared about the players. He did what was in their best interest, not what was in his best interest. A true servant leader.
So Matt, when I was reading about you and your story and this fantastic book you have coming out, it kind of reminded me of the new Texas football head coach, Steve Sarkisian, right? The last time he was in a head coaching position, didn't go over so well, and he's kind of needed to, as we would say, rebound from that, right? Get that second chance. And now he's coming to Texas. What kind of qualities, he even mentioned back when he was a first head coach, he didn't understand what it meant to be the leader of the team. He felt like he had to do it all himself. He couldn't rely on his other coaches. Texas fans know he's built a great coaching staff around him. What qualities do you think will best suit him to stay and remain the Texas head coach for years to come?
Yeah, I talk about the 6 knows of leadership, and I say knows, KNOWS, and I use an acronym STEVIT, and it's STEVIT. First of all, you got to know yourself. I think that's the most important thing. Like, who are you? How are you wired? And then what are you good at? What do you like? What don't you like? And then have a staff that can complement you. And then know what your hot buttons are. If you're an intense coach, don't become too intense. Stay inside the emotional boundary. If you're a laid back coach, don't become too laid back. And then then it's know your team, know your environment, especially at a place like Texas, right? Mac Brown and I talked about that a lot. Mac and I are friends, and he stepped into Texas football, and Darrell Royal was still there. I stepped into North Carolina basketball, and Dean Smith was still there, managing up. Where are the landmines that you don't want to step on? Okay. And they may be inside the athletic department. They may be in the boosters. They may be, who knows where they are. That's the key. You have to have somebody out there with a metal detector out in the field searching for the landmines. And then the vision, that's pretty easy. We're going to try to win a national championship every year. Industry, that's knowing the sport. He knows the sport. Boy, what a great offensive coordinator. And then the last, and I think the most important, mind for the truth. Do not surround yourself with people that are going to tell you things you want to hear. You need to. And I joke and say, if I was a head coach tomorrow, my lead assistant would have his business card with his name, and then the job, his title be truth teller. He comes to me whenever he or she comes to me whenever he or she wants. They feel they have information that I need to hear, good or bad. And I need to accept it, because a lot of leaders will bully an assistant, administrator, into just submission because they don't want to hear bad news. You've got to welcome bad news, because if you sweep bad news under the carpet, you're eventually going to trip over it.
He is Matt Doherty. His new book, which is released today, is called Rebound: From Pain to Passion, Leadership Lessons Learned. And Matt, with this book, Rebound, you speak from experience. And I really think now so many people should read your book, because I think a lot of people in the aftermath of the pandemic, something might have happened in their career where they need to rebound right now. And, you know, for a while there, it certainly looked as though from the outside looking in that you led a charmed existence. Here you are on this national championship team. You're playing with Michael Jordan and James Worthy, and then you become the head coach at North Carolina. You follow in the footsteps of Dean Smith, and I'm sure you wanted to be the next Dean Smith. I'm sure you wanted to be there for years and years and years and years and do what he did at North Carolina. And then after a few seasons, things went a little bit south, and you wound up, you know, parting ways with North Carolina. I would imagine that was one of the low points of your life, and then you had to find a way to rebound. Can you talk about that and how that inspired you to be who you are today and write a book like this?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. You know, I was recruited back to North Carolina. I was the head coach at Notre Dame. I was a head coach for 1 year. You know, I loved being at Notre Dame. We had a good team coming back. Everyone thought Roy Williams was going to be the next coach, and he turned it down. So Dean Smith recruited me to come back. And so I took the job, and my first year we were number 1 in the country, and I was voted AP National Coach of the Year. I mean, you know, nobody was hotter than Matt Doherty in college basketball. And then 2 years later, I'm forced to resign. And you know, it was the most devastating, emotionally scarring thing I've ever gone through in my life. And, you know, it's one thing doing that at another place, but if you do it where you grew up, and I grew up in Long Island, but I meant, you know, where you went to school, the Carolina family is emphasized. I felt like I was falling off the Empire State Building and there was no safety net. You know, my safety net was always Carolina basketball. And so, you know, Dean Smith and Roy Williams. And now I'm just back, you know, falling backwards and just waiting to hit the cement. And I do what most coaches do. You know, what does a coach do after a loss? He watches the film and gets better. So I chose to get better, not bitter. And in the book, I talk about the bitter river. You know, we all have dealt with something in our lives that can create bitterness. And we want to drive over this bridge, over the bitter river. There's no guardrails. It's windy. It's rainy. There's a hefty toll. And it's a swerving road. And all of a sudden, it just takes one comment. I mean, you know, or a picture, or just a North Carolina on TV. And it triggers you into wanting to go into the bitter river. And you got to fight that. And I think one of the best things we can do, and it's the hardest thing to do, is to forgive people. And not only forgive others, but forgive ourselves. Because the worst thing we can do is sit there in our house with the lights off saying, I screwed up. I shouldn't have done this. I should have done that. Why did I do? What an idiot. Why did I do that? That negative self-talk turns, you know, it sends you spiraling. And then the bitterness, the anger turn inward leads to depression. And so you've got to, I dealt with depression. You know, I mean, 17 years, man, I struggled. I put on a good mask, but boy, there were days I didn't want to get out of bed.
Man, I sure hope our listeners are taking notes today, because you are amazing, Matt. You're doing this book tour, of course, for Rebound, and I heard you say right now is not an ideal time to be in college athletics. I know you were kind of referring to where we are with the G League and players not getting paid, should they get paid, coaches making a ton of money, the idea of marketing and imaging. Can you maybe expand on that a little bit, of what you meant by not an ideal time to be in college athletics?
Well, I mean, and then throw COVID on top of that, right? So It's just coaches are control freaks, right? We want to control everything. And so there's so much out of your control now. Recruiting a player, the lifeblood is recruiting. So you have now, and you've always had, but you had agents and AU coaches. It's a dirty business. The underbelly of college athletics is dirty. And so you've got to try to find talented players because, you're only as good as your players. I don't care how good coach you are. I mean, look at Coach K, look at Coach Williams, look at Tom Izzo, look at, all the best coaches in college basketball. If they don't have the great players, sometimes they struggle. And so, you got to get the good players. Now you've got to get them and you've got to develop them. Well, with the one and done, these kids are out the door after the first semester. They're not even taking classes the second semester. So how do you deal with roster turnover? And then now you have the transfer portal. So all of a sudden the kid's upset. He's not playing as much. He decides to transfer. Look at some of these mid-major coaches that are getting fired. They just fired a coach at Albany. His name's Brown, Will Brown. Been there forever, 20 years. Heck of a coach. Two of his best players enter the transfer portal, leaves because they want to go to different programs. All of a sudden, he's not as good a coach because he doesn't have the talent. And so he loses. So, the AD could be a new AD. I don't know, but they make a change. So then the name, image, and likeness, do I believe in that for the player? Yeah. I remember walking into the bookstore my freshman or sophomore year, must have been my sophomore year, and I seen my jersey on display. No, my name's not on the back, but it's my jersey, number 44. And I go, man, that's cool. Like, that's really cool. And then all of a sudden I think, oh my gosh, like they're selling my jersey. I should get a cut. So, I get that. But now, yeah, it's a great idea, great concept. Good luck managing it. How are you going to manage that? So now, the car dealer in town, hey, we really need, Chris Duel. He's a hell of a player. So you're the car dealer. So, hey, Salty, I need you to give Chris a job. He's going to sign autographs, every Saturday during football season. And can you pay him $100,000? How is that going to get managed? So there's just so much on your plate as a head basketball coach. I used to say 15% of what you do is basketball as a head coach in college. Now it's probably less than that because of all the stuff you have to deal with. That's why players, coaches like to coach in the NBA versus college, because in the NBA, it's 90% basketball and 10% other stuff.
He is Matt Doherty. His new book, Rebound, released today. Matt, as you know, we're broadcasting now into Austin, Texas, and San Antonio, Texas, and all points in between. So as you talk about college basketball coaches, Shaka Smart is perceived to be on the hot seat at the University of Texas, which is interesting. Early in the year, they were number 4 in the country, and they've kind of had a bit of a bumpy road. Do you think that a program like Texas that just fired Tom Herman as the head football coach, even though he had a winning season and went to a bowl game but wasn't meeting expectations, do you think it's fair, the level of expectations for a Shaka Smart? Or when you take a job like the Texas Longhorns, do you realize that comes with the territory and you better deliver the goods?
Well, as I touched on earlier with the 6 no's of leadership, the E in Stevitt was environment. You know what you're signing up for, and that's why you sign a contract. And as long as the school honors the contract, I don't have a problem with it. The problem I have is a lot of times there's a big guarantee buyout for the coach, and then they try to nail the coach with some small NCAA violation to fire him for cause, so they don't have to pay him. But unless there's something egregious, if they just want to make a change, okay, pay him whatever his contract says. Do it legit up front. You know, you say good things, I'll say good things, and move on. I don't have a problem with that, and that's what you sign up for. I remember when I got let go at North Carolina, I was going around touring programs. Ironically, I went and saw Mac Brown's football team play Kansas State in Austin. It was in a box with his wife and the other coaches' wives. And then I went and watched the Spurs practice. I'm a big fan of Greg Popovich and R.C. Buford. What an unbelievable job they've done. And then I went to see the Mavericks practice. And I walked in, and Del Harris, the former head coach of the Rockets and longtime NBA coach, I never met him before. And he says, "Congratulations, you're officially a coach. You've been fired." So it's kind of a badge of, not a badge of honor, but I don't think there's any shame in it because people know, people know, okay, you got fired. Shaka Smart will get another coaching opportunity if that happens. But, you try to look at why, like the whys. And I think a lot of times people don't want to understand the whys. Why didn't you have a great year? Because people don't want to do a deep dive. They just want to win, as Al Davis would say. Just win, baby.
Amen. He is Matt Doherty. The brand new book is Rebound from Pain to Passion, Leadership Lessons Learned. The foreword is by Michael Jordan. And finally, Matt, people listening right now, clearly it's a sports talk radio station, so sports fans are listening, but the sports fan listening might work at the grocery store, might, work at an insurance company, might be in the military. Why would you recommend your book, Rebound, to anybody who's listening right now?
Yeah, it's a good question, Chris, because everybody is a leader in some way, shape, or form. You might be a leader in your household if you're a parent, or you're the elder sibling, in your community, in your church, at your job. Even if you're not the boss, you still might be responsible to lead other people. And also talks about team building. Leadership is the most important topic out there. I don't care, like math, science, it's the most important topic. And it's the least taught. It's the least discussed. I don't know anybody that's taken a leadership class in high school or college. And, oh, by the way, you can't just learn it through a book. You have to practice it. It's a skill. It's like golf. The best golfers in the world practice every day. The best leaders in the world really evaluate their leadership each and every day. And I think that's why you need truth tellers around you.
This book sounds fantastic. I'm absolutely going to grab it, Matt. Once again, the book is Rebound from Pain to Passion, Leadership Lessons Learned, forward by Michael Jordan, written by Matt Doherty. Matt, so great to talk with you. Both Shannon and I have just loved it. Very inspiring. Love what you're doing. Love what you're teaching. Best of luck with the book, and congratulations on it.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Matt Doherty. Wow. Not too shabby, Shannon.
Not too shabby indeed.
Lots more coming up. We got another segment. We will take a look at the world of sports, talk a little more J.J. Watt. Speaking of Texas, talk a little Texas Longhorn hoops. They're in action tonight at Iowa State. Sam Priest is your soundscape stylist. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. I'm Chris. With you till 9. It's the Chris Duel Show.
That was great.
Woo! He was cool.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, Shannon, after the show, I got to fly out of here. I've got to take my mom down to the Alamo Dome for the big COVID vaccination. So,
have they been having really long lines?
I've heard both. I've heard some people say it takes an hour or longer. And then I've heard other people say I went right through it in 20 minutes or a half an hour. So I'm hoping we get lucky. So hopefully over time it's being streamlined. You don't get out of your car, which is a cool thing.
Oh,
for
see,
a
that's nice.
97-year-old. I'm going to start some early packing now. I'll be right back. Thank you, Leo. Let me see here. John Williams with a link. Where did the taco come from? Dating back to the 18th century. Oh, no. Now it's okay. There was a pop-up. Thank you, John. Yeah, Leo, we'd love to do that, and we'll certainly look into how we can enhance things. I agree with you. Okay, thanks. Welcome back. It is the Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney and soundscape stylist Sam Freese. Our thanks once again to Matt Gordy, joined us in the previous segment. Former college basketball head coach, national champion at North Carolina, played alongside Michael Jordan, Sam Perkins, James Worthy, Kenny the Jet Smith. My gosh. And Shannon, sadly, I got to pass this along because it is newsworthy, and it certainly was in the news Super Bowl week, and there is an update. The attorney for the family of the little girl that was injured in the car wreck involving Britt Reed, the son of Andy Reid, that happened just a few days before the Super Bowl in Kansas City. That attorney went on Good Morning America this morning, and he says that the 5-year-old girl, Ariel Young, likely has permanent brain damage and will be confined to a wheelchair for the foreseeable future, which is god awful. She was in a coma. She has awakened from the coma, which is good, but just a very sad story, and just awful for everyone involved, most specifically the little girl, 5-year-old Ariel Young. I think as well her brother was injured in that crash. I don't have any information on him. I think she was certainly injured more severely, but awful story for everybody involved there.
Horrible. How quickly life can change.
Yeah.
And change in such a drastic way for that entire family.
Oh, yeah.
Especially her.
Yeah. So anyway, don't love passing along such an awful story, but yeah, it's in the news, and that's an update on that. So also, moving on to something a little more positive from the world of sports, we did hear, I talked about the Spurs losing last night in overtime to the Brooklyn Nets. It's a back-to-back for the Spurs tonight. They'll play again tonight against the New York Knicks. And Tom Orsborn of the San Antonio Express News is reporting that Keldon Johnson, who has been just phenomenal for the Spurs in his second year now, when he has played, he's one of the many Spurs who have been out with the COVID protocols, that he could return as early as tonight. So the Spurs trying to get back on a winning track after losing last night to Brooklyn. I was so proud of myself, Shannon. It was possible. We talked about those 3 Spurs games.
Yes.
And I said 2 out of 3 in honor of Meatloaf, because 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And when the Spurs went to overtime, I'm like, whoa, they can get 2 out of 3, which was my pick. I think you picked 1 out of 3, didn't you?
I picked 0.
You picked 0 and 3?
And where are we right now? 0 and 2?
No. They were 1 and 2 in those games, because they. Is that right? Yeah, they were 1 and 2.
And the first 3 back?
The first 3 that we called, yes.
Oh, last night was the third? I was thinking tonight was the third.
I thought last night was the third. I don't even know.
Maybe you're right. Last night was the third because it was OKC, then New Orleans.
Oh, the Pelicans. That's right. That's right. Okay.
Totally freaking me out. I thought, okay.
Okay. So one out of three.
And all right. So yeah.
How do you feel about them playing the Knicks though? Because what are they, fourth in the East right now?
Knicks are 18-17, which is so weird. They're above 500. And the Spurs usually in New York every year, the Spurs have a hard time with the Knicks, even when the Knicks were god awful. It seemed like the Spurs would always go to Madison Square Garden and lose to the New York Knicks. Now, this season, as we know, everything's upside down. The Spurs are a much better team on the road than they are at home. So this is a scary one. Plus, and Becky Hammond, who was on the post game with Bill Schoening last night. And oh, by the way, Bill will join us tomorrow just after 8:00. Every Wednesday, we check in with the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. But Shannon, he was talking with assistant coach Becky Hammond after the game, and she pointed out, and it's true, the Spurs expended a lot of energy last night to fight back in that game. They went on a 10-0 run to close out regulation, to tie the game, to send it to overtime. So then they play an extra 5 minutes in overtime, and they're already shorthanded. So now you've got a back-to-back. So now, less than 24 hours later, you're back on the court playing a better than the last several years New York Knicks team. So yeah, it's hopefully Keldon Johnson does come back and is fresh tonight, because the Spurs can probably use him tonight.
Their almost baseball-like schedule is going to go one of two ways. They're going to get burnt out, or they will become so durable and everlasting that by the playoff time, no one else will be able to go 7 games. They're like, well, we've been there. We can play back to back to back. We're all right. So hopefully it goes that way for the Spurs, because this is quite a stretch here.
Yeah, when they hit the second half, it is 40 games in 68 nights, I believe. No, there's never a 2-game rest or a 2-night rest days off. It's no more than 1 day off ever in the final 68 nights. 40 games in 68 nights, 11 back-to-backs. And the Spurs are currently 0-4 on the second night of back-to-back. So you're right, Shannon. It is going to be a grueling second half of the season. And apparently the strength of schedule, they play some really, really tough. It's a tough schedule compared to the rest of the league. So, but, you look at what they're doing now. And even in these 3 games, at Oklahoma City, that went down to the wire. They could have won it. They lost it. Then you beat New Orleans, and then you went to overtime with a very, very good Brooklyn Nets team, while very, shorthanded with so many guys out for COVID issues. If they can ever get to full strength, and they will eventually get everybody back, I like this team a lot. I like what they're doing. It's a much better team than each of the last 2 years. It's easily the best Spurs team since the Kawhi Leonard debacle. So, hopefully they can keep a good thing going.
Well, with these such tight schedules and trying to get all these games in and make up games that they've had to miss, how much are we putting on the coaches for this season? Like, I know Brad Stevens is a bit under fire right now over with the Celtics, but you mentioned how little time they have in between games. Where is there room for coaching other than a pregame shoot around and on the court when you're in action? It's almost like we're playing pickup games every day.
That's a great point. I would imagine,
and the Spurs being such a young team, that's where my pause comes in.
Yes. Yeah. I would imagine it's, as you describe, it's kind of coaching on the fly. It's kind of, coaching them up in shoot around day of, in film session when you have an opportunity for it, and in game. So, and though I would imagine, your teams with the better coaches are going to do better. Now, as I say that, I look at the team with the best record in the NBA, and that's Utah Jazz. So are we to assume that Quinn Snyder, who is the head coach of the Utah Jazz, that he's, an outstanding coach because he's managing this? They're 27-8 that's 77% of their games, and they've got a 3-game lead over the Lakers and a 3.5-game lead over the Clippers. And I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. Yet I hear people say that come playoff time, the Utah Jazz, nobody really has fear of the Utah Jazz because they don't have, they've got Donovan Mitchell, they've got some nice parts, but they don't have that player or players where you go, oh my God, they've got Kawhi, or they've got James Harden, or Kevin Durant, or Kyrie Irving, all 3 of those guys on the Brooklyn Nets when they're healthy.
And maybe for them, that's their biggest advantage. There's not a guy that teams are prepping for to lock down every night. And so anyone can have a hot night and turn it on and do what the Jazz need to get done in order to secure those wins. I think they're in a great place right now.
Yeah, and winning is the bottom line. You win the games that are in front of you, and they are currently winning. And the question will be, can they get the deal done in the playoffs? And we shall see. And that's going to be a big, big question. Meanwhile, your Dallas Mavericks, I'm looking now, a game above 500.
We did it.
At 17-16.
We beat the Magic last night.
Very nice. So
what an accomplishment.
You've won 8 of your last 10, 2 in a row. So Mavericks seem to be on the uptick. They are ascending in the standings.
Hitting our stride right when it matters most, just before you go into a break.
Yeah. Spurs fell from the 5 slot to the 6 slot last night with that loss. Spurs now a half a game behind the Portland Trailblazers. And we talked about this yesterday, Shannon, from 5, where the Blazers are, to, let's see, 9, 10, where the Memphis Grizzlies are. That's only 2.5 games from the 5 slot to the 10 slot. So a lot really of those tight teams. Yeah. Blazers, Spurs, Nuggets, Warriors, Mavericks, even the Grizzlies are right there.
And you mentioned the topsy-turviness of the season with teams winning more on the road. Probably a lot of that due to the lack of fans. You think those 3,200 fans the Spurs are going to start getting here in the middle of March are going to help them, a little bit of crowd noise, a little bit of hype going in, and maybe play stronger at home?
That's a great question. And I think so. But, how much noise can 3,200 make in an arena that seats about 16,000?
They're going to give them all megaphones. That's like, there's all like bobblehead night, T-shirt night. Every night is megaphone night.
Yeah. Well, and, you've got to believe that trend is going to continue around the league. So therefore, this flip that we've seen, including the Spurs, let me take a quick look at the Spurs road record. Spurs are 9-4 on the road and 8-9 at home. And that's the trend in the NBA. Teams playing much better on the road. As fans start showing up, as you mentioned, will home teams start winning more? And I think you have to assume that they will.
Yeah, I'm excited for Spurs fans to be able to get back. Would you go, given the opportunity, or are you still?
Yeah, I would socially distance. I'd wear the mask, but oh gosh, if you could be there, absolutely.
Yeah. Does the Orlando Magic game excite you?
Say that again.
As the first game back, because it was going to be the Lakers, right? Now
yeah,
Lakers.
Magic. Lakers would have been a better first game back, but
take what you can get. But
exactly. Plus, hopefully, you go Magic are 13-22. They're next to last in the Eastern Conference, so hopefully you get a win. Would be very, very nice. Well, Shannon, outstanding as always. We'll do this again in 21 hours.
Thank you, sir. I look forward to it. You were wonderful as well.
Thank you very much.
Go get you a taco.
Matt Doherty liked you.
Oh, yeah.
Especially your salty Irishness.
Yeah, I guess he's probably Irish too with a name like that. So
yeah,
that's cool. We're buds now.
Sam Tracy rock, sir. Are you back tomorrow?
Sir, always fun. Y'all see you again in 21 hours.
Cool. Sam is on Twitter at Biggest Puma. In San Antonio, he'll be on board with the Sports Grind and the Mike Taylor Show. Thanks for hanging out with us. We will see you in 21 hours. Have a great Taco Tuesday. Adios. I'm down to the Alamo Dome.